From vengeful children to grave-robbing zombies, we're diving into the eerie folklore of Scandinavian ghosts. Welcome back to Morbid History, and today we're heading to my little home, Sweden. Spöke, Draug, Myling, Kyrkogrim, and strandvaskare. 5 supernatural entities that haunted Viking warriors, farmers, and unsuspecting beachgoers alike. Let's get into it.
Morbid History.
So yeah, let's start with number 1, Spöke. The most basic of them all. And even though they might sound like they enjoy some pumpkin spice latte or whatever the kids say are basic today, don't be fooled. They do resemble the ghosts from those old black and white films, but they have some standards. Spöken would usually appear just as they were buried or the way they demised, often wrapped in their burial shroud. That's why they show up in their big sheets over them all around the world, because people back then were buried in shrouds that enwrapped them. So yeah, that's an explanation for that, even though we didn't ask. Either way, here in Scandinavia, Spöken was the soul and the spirit of the dearly departed person, and not at all their bodies. They were not always evil or dangerous. Sometimes they actually showed up, or in most stories, to give a heads up or something, like an alarm, a ghost alarm. There would be illness, an accident, or even a life subscription cancellation soon happening within the family. Like a bit of ghostly courtesy. Either way. Other times they, like usual ghosts, wanted to get help in some way, because something was left unresolved. They might have gone in a traumatic way, or they wanted something to be buried with them in their little casket, or yeah, something easy like that. And also, you wouldn't, like, if you met a ghost in Scandinavian folklore, it wouldn't leave you unharmed either. Usually you would get very, very sick for a couple of days afterwards, so it's not all fun and games. So, what could you do to prevent your dearly departed loved one to come back as a spöke? Well, you had to follow some deathbed etiquette. No loud noises, no laughing, no fun, as to not disturb their spirit's journey to the afterlife. Absolutely no loud noises like that. Just keep quiet and let them carry on into the beyond. Yes. And when they had gone to the great beyond, you had to carry their bodies out with their feet first, because that would cause some confusion for the departed, and they wouldn't find their way back to the living. At least that was the thought. And the most important I'm gonna leave you here with was to put them in their grave with a coffin that wasn't too big or too small, because the spöke would come back and complain. Even in death, people will come and whine about poor service. And we wouldn't want that, would we? Next one. And now moving on to the complete opposite. The dearly departed's body coming back. If you thought Spöke was unsettling, this is worse. This was no ordinary ghost. Like we said, it's the walking, bloated corpse of someone who was downright evil in life. It was basically a medieval zombie, but it wasn't like driven by black magic or anything. It was just jealousy and spite. They didn't return because they were wronged or needed help, or to tell you that your house was gonna burn down. No, they came back simply because they hated the living so much. The Draug was hideously deformed, often appearing like a bloated, blackened, twisted features. No loved one would recognize this one. They were aggressive, extremely violent, and a little obsessed with wealth. It's said that they loved to go and grave dig in neighboring graves to find treasure to take back and hoard it in their own graves. Fantastic! To prevent someone from coming back as a Draug, there were a few things you could do. First off, if someone was very mean or cruel in life, you would avoid all eye contact while they were unsubscribing, and even afterwards. Just close their eyes, don't make eye contact, because if you did, they would come back for you, especially. And also, after this unsubscription, you would, just like with Spöken, take them out feet first, but you would go one step further and actually make a new hole in the wall and push the corpse out of it. Because that level of confusion might just be enough to keep them from returning. So smart. But what if then? Did your loved one return as a Draug anyway? You did a hole, you did everything, but there they are. Decapitation. That's your best bet. You remove this part and you put it between the legs of the evil person, and then you just set it all ablaze and hope for the best. And then you probably would do best in just packing up and moving away anyway, because spite is a very, very big and strong feeling. Next one. And now we have the most tragic and almost terrifying one of all, Myling. The word Myling comes from the Old Norse word myrda, which means murder. These were the ghosts of unwanted babies. Often life unsubscribed by their own mothers to hide pregnancies out of wedlock. And they would be born in shame and all that, and then they were buried out in secret, either in the woods somewhere, on a hill, or, as most stories say, under the floorboards of their own homes, where they would be trapped in a little box unless something went wrong. So what would you do to keep it trapped in the first place? Well, you would take something out of iron, scissors or a knife, and place it on its tiny little coffin or box, and that would lock its spirit in place. But of course, if that fell off in some way or came off and it became disturbed, this ghost would come up full of rage and sorrow and exact its revenge. Understandable. When it did appear, it would appear in the age that it would have been had it been able to live its life, but as a sickly, pale, malnourished version, of course, because it's been living in a box for all these years usually. And its main goal when it came out was to either find rest or unsubscribe their mothers, which they usually did by either breastfeeding them into demise or dancing them to death. In one of the most famous stories, they did exactly that. That story begins with a woman who is getting ready for her little wedding. Yes, she is getting married. Old-timey Swedish peasant wedding. As you might assume, she had a few years prior buried a little baby under the floorboards of her barn, actually. In this case, the barn where they were going to celebrate the marriage. Dumb idea. And as the guests were dancing and having fun, the vibrations of their stompings made the scissors she had put over its box to fall off. And with the spell broken, the now Myling, a young boy who came up looking gaunt and pale and malnourished, started dancing with its mother while singing a little song that went in Swedish. Min låda är trång, benen är lång, låt mig dansa än en gång, which translates to, my box is tight, my legs are long, let me dance once more. And the Myling went ahead and danced them both into the great beyond. Saving a Myling was possible, however. If you could hear it crying underground, it was important that you gave it a name. Usually that would, like your own name, you would give it to it and it would be happy like it was baptized. Or you would dig up the bones and bury it in consecrated ground. that was a good way to remove a Myling too, because then it would find rest. Until that happened, it would stay there and just wait for the day when the iron would fall off. And the mother could only hope that she was not alive anymore by then. This was, of course, as you can hear, more like a cautionary tale, trying to make teenagers not have babies out of wedlock and do dumb stuff like that. Next one. And now to one of my personal favorites, the Kyrkogrim. In Scandinavian lore, every time you were to build a new church, the first living creature to cross or walk into its foundation was to be sacrificed alive to then come back and serve as the church's eternal guardian. And most of the time that would be an animal, like a duck or a dog, but in some dark tales, this was actually not an animal, but a child. Yes, small, poor children in some stories were lured into a pre-dug hole with promises of food. In one of the tales, they take a little child and tell it that if you go into the hole, I'll get you a sandwich, and it gets a sandwich and goes into the hole, and then they start filling it with sand or, mud and stuff, and the child in the tale usually replies by saying, "Be careful, you're soiling my sandwich." And that goes to show the idea behind it was that the child's innocence made it the best guardian, apparently. Yeah, one particular problem that Kyrkogrim had to deal with were drunkards, especially teenagers, because for some reason they thought that partying late at night between the gravestones was super fun. For some reason that was a thing. It became very popular to go to the graveyards late at night to get drunk with your teenage pals. And a way to make that not happen was by their parents telling them that they would be chased out by the Kyrkogrim if they did. One famous tale was actually not about teenagers at all. This was a drunk old man who waltzed into a graveyard at night and sat down and started singing a very rebellious song about burning down churches. And it all ended with the Kyrkogrim, who was a big black ghost horse that breathed fire, coming up and chasing him all the way to his front door. And when he woke up the next morning and looked at the door, he could see its hoof prints and fire, like it had destroyed his door. So it even came out of its sacred grounds to haunt him, which just shows that clearly the Kyrkogrim did not take threats kindly, drunken or not. Don't do that. So to sum it all up, they were sacrificed alive in the ground to become guardian spirits, and they did not enjoy you coming there, drunk or not, threatening to burn their home down. And now to the last one, strandvaskare. They were the ghosts of the sea. They were the restless spirits of people who had drowned and never received a proper burial, because that's pretty hard when you're in the ocean or the sea. Tough luck, I guess. Because, they will never be resting in any consecrated ground, and their souls would be condemned to just walk the shores of beaches trapped between life and death. It was said that these spirits were particularly, that's a hard word, dangerous during storms, and you should avoid beaches at all costs when there was a storm coming, because you would either see them walking up and down the beach, or you could see their faces distorted in the storm clouds, and you could hear their haunting howls in the wind. And if you came too close, they would take you and drag you down into their eternal crypt of the ocean with them. You did not want that. They could keep their watery graves to themselves. So to sum that up, these ghosts were a grim reminder of what would happen if you did not honor your dead properly. Like, if you drowned, you were gone, and no one could bury your body, and you were just cursed to walk the shores, a ghostly prisoner of the ocean's fury, to put it poetically. Not a fun time to be had there. Sad. So sad. The biggest sad. So yeah, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Do you have any weird ghosts where you come from? I'd like to know. Maybe I'll make a video about it sometime. Either way, it really helps if you like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, algo boost, yay! And the biggest giant hecking thanks to my YouTube members and my Patreon members. Without you, this channel would not be able to be made at all. So thanks, you're my heroes. Let's end it. As usual, stay amazing, stay hydrated, and most of all, stay morbid, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!